Welcome to Almost Agreeable.
Almost Agreeable.
With your hosts, Chris Nellison and Ed Harris. Hang around and listen to opinions on sports, movies, music, and whatever else pops in our head.
Welcome to another episode of Almost Agreeable. I'm one of your hosts, Ed Harris.
And I'm Christopher.
That's the co-host. So today, we have another music episode for you. Today we're going to be talking about the famous or infamous, however you want to look at it, 27 Club.
Ah, the Forever 27 Club.
Forever 27 Club. It's rough. It's really an extensive list. And we're mainly just going to be talking about the music artists from that. And then we'll dive into, just like we did with the last one, with 60s music, now we're getting into 70s music. Who's iconic? Who do we identify with the most? And
I gotta tell you, it's one of my favorite decades of music, for being real honest.
It's a great one. It's a great one.
So yeah, I guess, let's jump right into this 27, because right off the bat, I think about the age, 27. And it makes you think of John Lennon, okay, who was killed at 40. He was 40 years old. And I remember, obviously I wasn't alive, but my mother and my parents, actually, and all the other, older people in my life, talking about how much of a tragedy it was and how we were cheated out of, the next 40 years of John Lennon's career. And now we're talking about musicians who were very talented that died when they were 27. That's 13 years shy of that 40.
I'm 27 right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, just such a young age and to think if even John Lennon at 40 was damn, we missed out. 27, especially with the people that we're going to get to that were 27 when they died, and there's some big names on that list.
There's some big names, and they were already iconic. I mean, some of these artists, or some just people in general, such as Edgar Allan Poe, but just some artists become more famous posthumously. Right. After they're dead, they become more famous. With these musical artists we're going to talk about, I don't think that's the case.
No, they were already huge, already maybe had achieved superstardom, or absolutely going to, in one case I can think was going to be a superstar.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's a good point to make, because most of them absolutely were in the prime of their career.
Yeah. Should we start out with Jim Morrison?
We can, and when it comes to Jim, God bless, I love the Doors. Okay.
The Doors are just a classic band.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Obviously, when you think the music back then, you think of lyrics, you think of keyboard, and you think of the times, and yes, you think of the Doors, honestly, and they actually do also have a wide range of sound as well.
Yes.
But let me get back to Jim, because I think that Jim Morrison was an asshole. After everything I just said, I love the Doors, and I guess he was talented. Yes, he was, but he was an asshole.
Wait, why?
He just was. I think he's overrated.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that Jim Morrison was overrated.
Okay.
He was a drunken buffoon.
Yeah,
he was just a drunk asshole all the time. He treated women like shit. He treated his band like they were second fiddle, which I guess is maybe the case, because they didn't do a whole lot when he died.
That was really it.
I mean, if you were to watch the Doors movie, who do you remember any of the band members?
I do not.
The movie's called The Doors, and it's a biopic about Jim Morrison.
Yeah.
So
who is basically, that's Vlad Kilmer.
Yeah, dude, he wigged out on the set of that movie. He became Jim Morrison, and this is why I know he's an asshole, because everyone was he was acting just like Jim did, and you know what? He was an asshole.
He was an asshole. He just it's so weird to just see pictures of them side by side. It's just oh my god, that's Jimothy Morrison.
That's two different people?
Yeah.
Did you say Jimothy?
Yeah, I said Jimothy.
Okay, well, I think we're going to end this episode early.
I
can't with you today.
Thanks for coming by, guys.
Yeah, have a good one. This has been Almost Agreeable, and I think this is our last episode. We'll just sign off, going off on a weak note there. No, I like that. Keep it going. But I love the Doors. So much good music that is still on my rotation to this day. is a lot of Doors music. I was playing it at work a couple months ago, and everyone was vibing because everyone can vibe to that type of music.
It's just great. It's great to just have on whenever.
Did you know that Jim Morrison, they say that he died of heart failure, but there was no autopsy performed?
Really?
His death is still up to debate today.
Because that's what I've always known. It was just heart failure.
Heart failure.
But just like, dude's 27.
Yeah.
What?
Well, I mean, I just told you, dude was a drunken buffoon,
Yes.
and he was doing all these drugs. I mean,
Yes.
But yeah, isn't that odd? Like,
That
just,
is
he just
strange.
died of heart failure at 27. No one knows for sure. It's almost like has a Kennedy-esque assassination type of feel to it, where you can throw in, you know, a bunch of different conspiracy theories. I, for one, think that drugs and alcoholism, you know, ended his life.
There's an asterisk there. Just like heart failure, but like there's an asterisk.
Yeah, heart failure, what?
But that's what we're just gonna say, you know?
Yeah.
Drugs and alcohol.
It's a shame. To continue to what I was saying earlier, I don't see the Doors staying together much longer anyways, if he had stayed alive. But could he have had a successful solo career? Maybe. But he'd already been a superstar up to that point. But, I mean, yeah, I like the Doors, but I don't care too much for Jim Morrison.
I think if he could have taken some people who could tolerate him,
yeah,
he would have been able to make some more. I don't know if it would have been as iconic, but it would have been great.
Yeah,
He had that energy to just bring people along.
It makes me think of, like, and Black Sabbath was lucky because, you know, they kick Ozzy out because he's a drunken buffoon.
Yeah.
And they bring in Dio and have success.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do that with anybody else in Jim Morrison's case. I mean, we never got to see it. I mean, they did. Well, they had a chance to do it.
Did.
They had a chance to bring in someone after Jim died, and they didn't. Maybe they did. Maybe I'm misspeaking it. I don't know. But the reason I don't know is because did they have any successful shit after Jim died?
It didn't propagate.
So I'm just, I don't know that they could have done that. So Jim is the talent in that group. Obviously, all musicians that make it like that are talented, but obviously Jim's the star. And he makes this list because he died when he was 27, which, to think that he had accomplished that many albums and that much good music and writing those songs. I mean, I'm 30, and I'm like, to myself, I'm like, bro, like, how the fuck? He was 27, like,
That's
and
where
he had done all that.
That's where I'm at right now. I'm 27. It's like, I know maybe like a few hundred people, like, in life. That's it. I haven't done anything.
Nope.
Like, this is, like, probably reaching more people than I know. This show, Almost Agreeable. But, yeah. Crazy to think at that young of an age, Jim Morrison was doing all of this, as well as another Jim. But nobody calls him Jim.
No one calls him Jim. They call him, don't you do it.
They call him Jimmy.
Okay, good.
They call him...
I thought you were going to go to a dark place.
I wasn't going to go to a dark place, okay? It's already pretty dark subject overall.
It is.
It's Jimi Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix. So we spoke about Jimi Hendrix last week.
We did.
The 60s.
We touched on him, not really touched on him, but really stayed on him for a little bit.
Yeah.
Spread out some information, but I mean, the Jimi Hendrix experience was an experience.
To say the least.
Like, and he honestly didn't put out, many albums, like a crazy amount of albums, but everything that he did was iconic.
Well, we said it last week, right? Like, he kind of revolutionized the way that electric guitar is played. The way everyone played it after that. I mean, no one was messing around with the guitar like that until he did.
Yeah. I mean, that... You can just hear, like, every time you hear his rendition of the national anthem.
I listened to it today.
Did you really?
I did. It was on, I follow this music page on Facebook, and it was like, relive the national anthem, like, by Jimi Hendrix.
Oh,
and
my
was just
God.
like, I was like, yes, I will. I will read that right now.
Yeah, I will play that every single time.
Every time it pops up on my feed, yes.
Because he just rips that thing, man. It just...
What's your favorite thing about him?
Oh, God. I think... really just his... It's kind of the confidence, kind of the cockiness, kind of the not give a fuck, like, of anything. He just knew he was great. He knew he was great, but it wasn't ever, like, over the top. He just went out and did it.
Yeah.
He would just go shred, and, I mean, this is in the 60s, when you're not seeing really a lot of exposure for black artists I mean, you have black artists, but you're not seeing them become what Jimmy became.
Right, or doing what Jimmy was doing.
Exactly.
Like,
So
it was a lot of cookie cutter kind of feel back then to those type of bands.
Yeah, so it's just him going out and just shredding, taking care of business, and becoming the star that he was. Iconic.
Is it a myth that he used to put the acid tabs in his headband? Is that like been confirmed?
Let's say it's been confirmed.
That's like my favorite thing.
Yeah.
Like my favorite thing is that like this dude was tripping acid while he was playing guitar up there, but it wasn't in his mouth.
Yeah.
He just stuck it under his headband and he would absorb it through his pores.
There you go. Yeah, let's say that's the truth.
And it kind of along the same lines as Jim Morrison, because Jimmy died of asphyxiation, right? He choked on his vomit in his sleep, and he had been on barbiturates and had been drinking heavily, which is kind of, I guess, the lifestyle for everyone on this list, except for, we'll get probably the last one we're talking about in '94, but wasn't a drug overdose or asphyxiation in that case. I'm talking. Well, I guess I'll bring it up now. Let's talk about Kurt Cobain.
Let's get to Kurt Cobain.
Kurt Cobain killed himself.
Yeah. Right,
and he was a heroin addict though.
Yeah.
Right, and
it's unfortunately the kind of the theme with everybody here. We all have our vices.
Yeah.
We all have our vices, something we're clinging to or experiencing for some reason or another. And I mean, these people are in their mid-20s and have access to anything they want in the world.
Right.
And so it just makes it easy. It's a new experience. And they're like, okay, yeah, sure. But, I mean, I don't know about heroin and stuff like that, but like, I'm sure it's just like, oh, I'll try it once. Yeah. Nobody's just like, yeah, I want to get addicted to heroin.
Yeah, But I think for someone also like Kurt Cobain, is that we just talked about the spotlight and the availability of all these things and like the fans. And Kurt Cobain was like an introvert, like big time. He hated the system.
Yeah.
He didn't like people. He was awkward. And that takes its toll. That's a lot of pressure, right? That's a lot of pressure on anybody. The only person that I can think of in music that comes directly to the forefront of my mind right away that embraced that and wanted that lifestyle was David Lee Roth. Okay, ate that shit up. But other than that, there's a list of people, of musicians, artists that didn't like the limelight.
Yeah.
And Kurt Cobain, I think, is at the top of that list. I think the pressure combined with heroin, combined with a messy relationship with Courtney Love, all contributed to what some people think was not a suicide.
Yeah.
But I'm not into conspiracy theories. Right?
Yeah, that's what it's been ruled.
Yeah. But do you think, because now this is like Nirvana we're talking about, looking back in retrospect, I know a lot of people like today are like, oh, they were overrated. What do you say to them?
Nirvana is the Beatles of the 90s.
Ah, I like that analogy. Okay.
That's what they are. It wasn't about the music. It was about the movement. Grunge just shot up out of nowhere.
Right.
And everybody in Seattle was like, oh, grunge is dope.
Yep.
Let's do that.
And they were the forefront of that movement.
They were the forefront of that. And we don't have these grunge artists left anymore. I mean, Kurt Cobain, we had Lane Staley.
It's just Eddie Vedder now.
That's it. That's all we have.
Because what? Chris Cornell's gone too.
Yeah.
What a fucking shame, man.
Those four guys, like, that's who I think of when I think of grunge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that movement was just...
Scott Weiland too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that's a whole thing we can get into another time. They were obviously all older. And I want to come back to 27 after we talk about a couple more people, but... I hear you. Nirvana being the forefront of the grunge movement, and then...
But their music, back to your question, their music overall, I enjoy.
Yeah.
That, and isn't that all you need?
Really it is. Besides, I don't know, love. All you need is love.
Okay.
Sorry, that's a Beatle reference. I apologize. Next on the list, I think we got like a couple more. I was going to mention Janis Joplin.
Janis Joplin, and that is, this is the first woman that we're talking about on the list. Yeah. Before we get to the next woman.
Right.
But Janis Joplin was a bad bitch.
Bro. She just would wail into that mic.
Yeah.
And for that time, and talking about the 60s again, right? And so it's like, when have you ever heard anything like this before?
Yeah. It's new. It's just a new sound. It's an entirely new... feel.
Yeah. No, I listen to her stuff still on my rotation. Like I said, I think I mentioned in the last music episode that I live, musically in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. And so she's on my rotation. And I just get angry and like pent up when she's singing, dude. I'm like, yeah,
You're like, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
And she died of a heroin overdose. Kind of a trend we're seeing here.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, I guess, again, to me, it's the stardom. It's like you said, the availability, like to be like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then, like, like I said, no one tries to get addicted to these drugs. And it just kind of happens. At 27 is the most shameful part, I feel like, so young.
It's just a weird, like, just the mind. Everybody is mentally different at every age. Like, you can't compare me to you to anybody else. Like, we're all mentally different at different ages.
Because they all come through different walks of life.
Yeah. But do you think there's any kind of correlation between 27 or just this is what happened?
I was going to ask you that myself. And I guess my feeling on it is that I don't believe, that there's like, these great stars, they're 27 and they're like, something divine happens and they die at 27. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I think it's purely coincidental. And I think it's highlighted by the fact that they were all superstars. People die all the time when they're 27, like, of similar things. We just don't know about it because they weren't the lead singer of The Doors or the best guitar player that ever lived or the lead singer of Nirvana.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. But also we're talking about it. Like, it's still it's a weird thing still.
I think it's partially, they've been iconic, they've been celebrities, they've been famous for, at that point, years.
Right.
And it's building, and it's not like anything causes them to shoot themselves, commit suicide. I don't think that it's just like, 27 is the number, like you were saying. But I think it's that kind of downturn. It could be like some of them were at the height of their career, but it's just the specific age that, like, okay, you're quote unquote over the hump.
Right, you're an adult.
Yeah, you're an adult now, and so it's just a different mindset.
Right.
Once you're 27, and you're like, am I still mid-20s? I think that's late 20s now.
Yeah. I would say 27 is late 20s.
I think it's late 20s.
Well, I'm thinking of one more person, right? I think I got one more person, but I don't know a whole lot about her. I just know that she was 27.
She was 27, and this is the latest one, the latest musical artist.
Right, because there's the list is extensive with not just musicians, but we're sticking with that today. And Amy Winehouse, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm not gonna lie, I know one song by Amy.
Yeah, and that's, but even that still speaks to this 27 Club, like.
The song is iconic.
Yeah, it is. It speaks to everything that we've been talking about. Maybe helping yourself, going to rehab.
Yeah.
It's just, it really lines right up with everything. But, like, there is a documentary, I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix, called Amy.
Yeah, I think I've skimmed by it.
And this girl just had soul, man. This girl, and to me, I think it's because it's the first one that I've actually seen, the first 27 Club that I saw actually pass. To me, she just felt like there's no way. Like, she's young. Like,
right.
She's young. There's no way. Because it's my first time witnessing somebody who was 27 and pass away just out of nowhere.
It hits you in a way, because I remember when it happened, and I obviously didn't listen to a lot of her music, but, like, I remember the shock, and it was a tragedy when it happened. I remember being like, even though I wasn't a fan, I was like, she was so young.
Yeah.
Like, initially, I didn't even think about the 27 Club.
No, I didn't even know she was 27. It didn't cross my mind.
Yeah.
I was just like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Like, and for me, that honestly is what took off my, like, interest in her, honestly. Like, I didn't listen to her a lot before. But after I went through, and man, this girl had a voice. She had pipes. This girl had soul.
I heard a lot of people did that. I've heard a lot of people saying that they did that. It's like, and that kind of feeds into what we were saying earlier. Like, some of these musicians, didn't get big until they were already dead. And I feel like she was big, but people that weren't into her before she died kind of jumped on that and found out what she was about.
Yeah.
And obviously it was a little too late. I guess for me that would suck because I'd be like, this is great music. too bad I'm never gonna be able to listen to anything new.
This is it.
Yeah.
Better get your fill.
And that just goes back to like the finality of all that is all this great music, and it was ended so prematurely.
Extremely. It's rough to think about.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's also just different to think that, you know, we were robbed of John Lennon and he could have created more music, but maybe he wouldn't have. Like we were saying about Jim Morrison, maybe all of these people wouldn't have created more music
Forever.
Not
everyone's Mick Jagger.
Exactly.
I wish he would stop.
Keith Richards.
I wish they would stop.
Still alive, just fueled by drugs.
I don't know how that dude's walking around right
drugs.
now. Oh, cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug. Same with Ozzy. Like, just exists.
I want to do a whole fucking episode on Ozzy and how I can't understand a word he says when he's talking, but when he's singing, I'm like, yeah, I'm singing along. I know. Yeah,
that's clear.
I get it.
I mean, in summation, really, it's just talking about this 27 Club. There's such good music, and it's such different styles of music, but they're all linked by this really great tragedy.
Yeah, and I mean that's just it's a part of pop culture now. It's something that, you know, like I've said, I think it's coincidence, but it's still an intriguing, you know, subject. A sad one at that, though, like you said.
Yeah.
Like, just to sum it up, very sad. And, you know, there's a few people on that list, but nothing that warrants them to be mentioned in the breath of these people we just talked about. So, I guess, you know, we can kind of put that to bed.
Yeah. That really clears up, you know, what we wanted to touch on the 27 Club. Just some of these iconic artists and what they were doing at the time and how they changed, really, before and after their death.
Right. So yeah, just, you know, that was rough, I'll say, even though I had a lot of fun talking about these artists, but you know, we'll come back in a little bit and talk about the 70s, a little more upbeat subject, I would say.
Yeah, can definitely get into the 70s.
All right. All right, so last week we dove into the 60s. We talked about my personal favorite, the Beatles, some other artists that were very influential in that decade. I know that after having listened to some feedback from some listeners, we missed some. And I'll tell you right now, don't think for a minute that we missed anybody in our heads. We just don't have a lot of time to talk about every single thing that was great about that decade, okay? So we got to hit the highlights. The same thing's going to happen today, so don't be disappointed when we don't, you know, hit some obscure band that I don't think is obscure, but I know other people don't know who they are. We're going to hit some big names today.
Well, you know, it's different. The 60s and 70s are different, okay? Like, in the 60s, we have really these giants. Like, we have the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix,
The Who,
the Rolling Stones, the Doors. Like, we have these massive names. And in the 70s, we do as well, but it just exponentially grows.
Oh, yeah. It's like
the 70s is... choosing a favorite anything in the 70s is tough.
It's real tough. And so I think we should start with the most obvious.
What's the most obvious?
Led Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin's the most obvious. Now, I went through a phase in high school where my dad had all their vinyls. Okay, so he got a record player, and I used to listen to these vinyls, and then I would hang them on my walls. I had posters of all their album covers. I listened to Jimmy Page when he was with the New Yardbirds. Like, I went through like a deep dive into Led Zeppelin for like a whole fucking year. Like, I didn't listen to anything else. Ed, you know me. You know that when I like something, I listen to it over and over and over again. That was me with Led Zeppelin for a fucking year.
That was me. So, like, my wife has Led Zeppelin tattoos. Like, now we have Led Zeppelin records, stuff like that. I had known songs from Led Zeppelin, but I really dove into it when I started dating her. Because I was like, this girl likes something. Like, let's do something so that she likes you back.
Right.
So that's what I did. I listened to their entire discography, and I was like, wow, some of the songs that I had heard the song before, I didn't know was from Led Zeppelin.
Oh.
And I was just like, Led Zeppelin does this as well? I was like, why do I know like 30 of their songs?
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like some of their best songs are the ones that aren't played on the radio all the time. Right? Everyone knows Stairway. You know, everyone knows Rock and Roll. Everyone knows Black Dog.
Yeah.
Everyone knows those songs. Everyone knows Dazed and Confused. But, like, I'm talking, like, songs that don't get airplay. Those are some of their best songs. And just to name a couple, like 10 Years Gone. If you're a Zeppelin fan, you don't know 10 Years Gone, then you're not a Zeppelin fan. What's the one I love? Gallows Pole is great.
Gallows Pole is so good.
Custard Pie. Songs like that you don't hear anywhere unless you're listening to the albums yourself. That's the great thing about Zeppelin, too, because you can have the superstar that they did and then go look at their stuff that didn't get played, and it's better.
The first song I ever heard, and I can't even place where I heard it, but it was Kashmir. And that song just captured me. Just pulled me right in, and I was like, whoa, this is really good. And this is when I was in, like, I don't know, maybe 8th, 9th grade. And so I listened to that album, Physical Graffiti, but, like, that was it. I was just like, oh, okay.
Is Kashmir over Physical Graffiti?
Yeah.
You're right. I was thinking for some reason it was on Led Zeppelin 4, but Led Zeppelin 4 is a great... What's your favorite album?
My favorite album, honestly, is 2.
2? 2 is great.
2 is really good, but also 1, just Led Zeppelin.
That was a great debut album. I mean, not the best debut album of all time, but it's definitely top 5. Oh, let's go. Yeah.
We'll do that. No, that's a whole one we're going to do.
Okay, good.
Best debut albums of all time.
Good. I think my favorite album is probably 4. Probably Led Zeppelin 4. And that's just because it has like one of my favorite songs by Led Zeppelin, you know, When the Levee Breaks.
When the Levee Breaks is iconic.
The drums in it, I know they turned you into a believer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was listening to Led Zeppelin, and it wasn't until Led Zeppelin 3, it wasn't until that album that I was like, I was just like, I'm not really like feeling the drums. Everything else is fantastic. I'm not really feeling the drums. And then I listened to Moby Dick and was like, oh, there's the drums. Okay.
Oh, John Paul
there
Jones.
it is.
Oh.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Or is it John Bonham?
It's John Bonham.
John Bonham. That's right. That's what I messed up. John Paul Jones, the bassist.
Exactly.
I got it. I'm here. I'm yeah, you know, whatever.
But I mean, we talked about Zeppelin because their first album was released in the 60s. Barely. But that when they really made their stand was in the 70s.
Right, and that's when they made their like a name for themselves. Really, like when it became a household name for rockers. I guess we can move off with Zeppelin a little bit. Everyone knows that's what we let off with them because everyone knows that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of bands that I want to mention. I guess next I'll talk about Pink Floyd a little bit.
Okay.
I love Pink. I think there's a song by Pink Floyd that has one of my favorite guitar solos ever.
Really?
Yeah. The guitar solo in Comfortably Numb
moves
me every time I hear it. No matter how many times I hear it. I remember I was driving in the car, you know, with Lindsay.
Oh, that is such a good guitar solo.
And I was like, hey, this guitar solo, like, feel it, like, listen to it. And like I'm driving and I'm like with it, and it's like I can feel the emotions in me just like swelling and like just getting excited, like with the every, you know, guitar strum. And I look over and she's just like, okay. And I'm like, get out.
You're like, cry with me. Make
your
body cry and feel with me.
Either vibe right now with me or get out.
And that's it. There's a truck stop somewhere, I'm sure.
And obviously we compromised and she stayed in the car. But
yeah. But, I mean, Pink Floyd is just that. That's the, like, whoa, acid trip. Like, otherworldly. Like, I mean, you know, like, you play it with The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
That's, like, the legend. You can play Dark Side of the Moon side by side with the Wizard of Oz, and it just syncs up.
Yeah. And so that was... Because now we're in a decade where it's not like the 60s where, like, all that is, like... What the fuck is going on? Like, who is Sgt. Pepper?
Yeah.
Like, that's what's happening in the 60s. In the 70s, it's now like, yo, this is that shit. Like, it's okay now. I love it.
It's been embraced. It's just like, let's get weird.
Right. And weird they fucking got.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, love Pink Floyd. They're obviously had to be mentioned during this segment. But there's a lot. Like, I don't know if we have a lot of time to cover all of them, but...
There's not. I mean, of course, we can do some honorable mentions, but we're just talking about, you know, maybe some of our personal favorites or just, you know, bands that were iconic in the 70s. And, I mean, we can't talk about Led Zeppelin without talking about Black Sabbath.
Okay, I'm glad that's where I was going to go next. But before you got there, just real quick, I'm going to do an honorable mention now as we're talking about colors. We
Okay.
said Pink Floyd. I just don't want anyone to think I forgot about Deep Purple, okay? We can come back to Deep Purple maybe, but let's go to Black Sabbath. That's another color, right? We're in a color scheme right now.
Well, that kind of works with Black Sabbath, because eventually, throughout the course of Black Sabbath in the 80s, the singer from Deep Purple went to Black Sabbath.
My dad would be so fucking proud of you right now. My God, because he used to make me listen to that album. "Yeah, this is the guy from Deep Purple. You gotta listen to this album." I'm like, okay. And I listened. I was like, yeah, this is good. It was good. It was good.
It was good.
But Black Sabbath. I mean, so this goes back to what we were saying about Jim Morrison in the last segment. Is that like you probably couldn't replace him. Now, not to say you could replace Ozzy or Dio, but they've had success with multiple frontmen.
Yeah.
Because it goes to show you how musically we can get into Tony Iommi and his fucking fingers.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if people don't know how Black Sabbath has their guitar sound, just know that Tony Iommi, the lead guitarist, like chopped off the tips of his fingers and just decided to like put some metal on them, right? Welded metal to close the wounds, and
So it just gives it a different sound.
the guitar sounds totally different when he's playing it. It's amazing.
But Black Sabbath, their first two albums, I mean, they came out in the same year. They came out in 1970.
Which is unheard of.
And, I mean, I just love the first song on their first album. It's Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath on the album Black Sabbath. Just triple down on it. Why not? Just make sure everybody knows.
It's like a lot of people have the misconception that Paranoid was their debut album. But it wasn't.
It wasn't.
So you're talking about Black Sabbath, like...
Straight up the album Black Sabbath.
Right.
And they had a lot of different songs on there that were kind of... It was almost like a show, because they had multiple names in one song title.
Right.
So it was just different. It was something different to do. And then they lead themselves off with Black Sabbath, and they released Paranoid
The
later
same
that
year.
year. The same year. And that is the greatest album of all time.
It absolutely is the most iconic Black Sabbath album of all time. I don't know if I can run right now with you and say that it's the best album of all time. It's one of the best albums, a top 10.
What is the best album of all time?
I can't answer that.
Can you name every single song on Paranoid? We probably could. There's only 8.
I know. So, okay, just name a few, I think. I'm going to leave some out. But we got Planet Caravan.
Yep.
We have Paranoid.
Yep.
Fairies Wear Boots.
Yep.
War Pigs.
Yep.
Iron Man.
Yeah.
And... my Electric Funeral.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm missing 2.
Rat Salad.
Oh my God, fucking Rat Salad.
Rat Salad, dude. Oh my goodness. And what is the last one? The last one is Hand of Doom.
Hand of Doom.
That's it.
So we can name all the songs on the album. That doesn't mean it's the best. Okay, but it's like, because you could listen to that all the way. For me, it's hard. It's rare for me to find albums that I can just listen to, like just push play on one and let it go.
Yeah.
And this is one of them that you can't.
That's my favorite thing, is to be able to... I love when albums are... When you can play them from start to finish and it just flows. Like, yeah, I'd love to be able to shuffle artists and stuff like that, but if I'm listening to a full album, I love being able to just start from track 1 and just have it flow through an entire story to the end.
Right. And I get that. Like I said, it happens rarely. For me, I think the album I most love to do that with is Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche, because it actually does tell a story.
Oh, very good, yeah.
Okay, so I don't want to leave Black Sabbath without talking about Dio. I guess what I'll ask you...
I mean, he joined in 79.
Okay, we'll save Dio for the 80s. So, running short on time, but let's throw some honorable mentions in.
I mean, we can go so deep with this. I mean, we're right now that we're just showing our biases to rock, classic rock, metal, because that's kind of the avenue that we're going with. But this is also the time of Jackson 5. Michael Jackson at the end of the 70s goes out on his own. Soul Train starts in the 70s.
Right.
Like, just...
Disco.
Like, we can go... I mean, there was Elton John. There was Fleetwood Mac.
Okay. I was Fleetwood Mac, yes. Like, I wish we had time to talk about Fleetwood Mac.
There was Bob Dylan.
Can we real quick just talk about the Rumors album by Fleetwood Mac?
Amazing. Amazing.
Well, obviously everyone knows it's amazing, but we talk about like what was going on behind the scenes when they were recording that album?
That whole like album, the whole process behind it, like, yeah, it's a great album, but looking behind it, just a shit show.
Just everyone's fucking each other.
There's so much drama.
Everyone's breaking up. Everyone's doing drugs.
I saw something. It was like, Rumors is an album about people hooking up and breaking up and all this connivery, recorded by people who are hooking up and breaking up and conniving.
That's so true. Okay, I'm sorry. I want to go down that rabbit hole for a second. Other bands like Rush was in the 70s.
Rush was in the 70s. I mean, we're just touching on like the big names, the iconic names, really, of rock is what we're talking about.
Okay, and then real quick, Van Halen 1, 70s.
Van Halen 1 was in the 70s.
Okay, then we'll say Van Halen also, like we're saving Dio.
Yep.
Eagles, Aerosmith.
Oh my God, that's what I want to say. The Eagles, yes. I mean, well, the Eagles do have the greatest, or the highest selling album of all time.
Yes.
I don't count it.
I don't either.
I don't count it, but
like, I'm an Eagle fan,
do.
But they turned country at the end there, like, recently, and I'm like, please don't.
That wasn't country.
I'm not talking about it in the 70s. Like, I'm talking about, like, in the last 20 years or so.
Yeah, that wasn't country.
We're a country band.
Nah.
And I'm like, kill yourselves.
I mean, there's so many different artists in the 70s that were just so good. It just expanded, like I was saying earlier. Music blew up. It really blew up. I mean, Freddie Mercury just...
Queen.
Took off. He made everything his own.
Yes.
You know, like, oh my god.
Couldn't leave the 70s without mentioning Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
Although now we do have to leave the 70s because I think it's time for...
Yeah, so now we're going to hop out of the 70s because we're going to hop into a hot route. Hot route.
Hot route.
Are you ready for these hot routes?
I don't know.
They're not bad.
Okay.
They're not bad. Just feel it.
Feel it.
Okay, so we did start out the episode on kind of a sadder note. So we're gonna go back to that.
Oh, great. Okay, I love being sad.
I love being sad. Which one of the 27 Club that we talked about do you think is the most sad or the most unexpected?
This is a hot answer. This is a controversial one. Kurt Cobain, I think, is the most sad, the most unexpected.
Do you think it's because of the violent way that it was?
I think that has a little bit to do with it, but more so with me, I think that, I mean, you look at the other 27s, they had successful albums, a lot of success for several years.
Yeah.
I think Nirvana had only been around for a few years at that point. They had been performing together for a while in Seattle, but it didn't hit the mainstream until 91, 92.
It was a very, very short amount of time.
It was fleeting.
Yeah.
And I think that's why that makes that the saddest.
That does make sense. It was like he wasn't even really in the stardom yet.
No.
Like, it was kind of just budding.
Right. Lucky for us, Dave Grohl was also a part of that band, and he went on and became one of the best human beings ever existed.
Ever. Yeah. All right. Now we're going to get into our second hot route. All right, this is a two-parter. So, we were talking about Black Sabbath earlier. Okay, so this is a two-parter. Okay, Black Sabbath. Just for Black Sabbath. Ozzy or Dio?
Look, man. I love...
In whatever way you want. Most iconic, favorite songs. This is subjective. What do you think?
It's Ozzy for me. For me, it's Ozzy.
Okay.
And I that's not to take away from Dio at all. Like, I love Dio. I love Rainbow. Obviously, I just say I love Dio, but I love Black Sabbath Dio. But I find myself rocking out more to Ozzy's Black Sabbath.
Okay.
What's the second part?
The second part is... outside of Black Sabbath, Ozzy or Dio?
Ozzy again.
Ozzy again?
Yeah, it's Ozzy again.
No. Dio is absolutely...
I thought you said this was subjective.
No, I'm just saying you can have your own opinion.
Stop hating me.
But you're wrong and I hate you.
Okay.
So, the answer is Dio.
Mm-hmm.
He has the best metal voice of all time. And that's just a fact. You can look it up.
Oh, you're right.
in books, leather-bound books.
I've read a book once.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't know, man.
So what puts Ozzy over the top for Dio for you? Just like what's the pinnacle that makes Ozzy just that guy over Dio?
Maybe it's not so much Ozzy. Maybe it's the musicians he worked with throughout his, solo career.
That does make sense.
Because I just find myself like not so much like singing along to Ozzy or singing with Ozzy. I find myself waiting for that guitar solo.
Really just listening.
And listening to the instruments, listening to the bass, listening to the drums, but absolutely waiting for the guitar solo of those songs. Like Randy Rhoads in particular.
Oh, yeah.
So like that's where I'm at right now. Because when I am listening to like, I don't know, any of those albums in Ozzy's solo career, whether it be like Blizzard of Oz or any of those, it's always just it's the music, it's the instruments. Yeah. And obviously Ozzy doesn't hurt.
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Ozfest there's an Ozfest. It's from Ozzy. It's because of Ozzy.
It's not called Dio Fest.
I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, but I'm not hating on Dio. Like, please don't hate me. Anybody who I know, there's people out there that disagree. I know one for a fact that I always think about when I have this debate with somebody.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to our last hot route. Okay, we're talking about the 70s.
Yeah.
So I've got 3 people from the 70s. Fuck, marry, kill. Olivia Newton-John.
Okay.
Stevie Nicks.
Ooh.
Freddie Mercury.
Okay. I'm gonna marry Freddie Mercury.
Oh, yeah.
No, I can't do that. I'm gonna marry Freddie Mercury. I'm gonna kill Olivia Newton-John, and I'm gonna fuck Stevie Nicks.
Oh, man. That's pretty much what I was thinking you would do. You can't kill Freddie.
You can't kill Freddie.
But you're not gonna fuck Olivia Newton-John. It's gonna be Stevie.
Yeah.
So
I can't leave Stevie off the fuck list. I can't kill. You can only marry Freddie Mercury. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, that was perfect.
That was good.
That was perfect.
Thanks for that.
Yes,
Yeah.
had to end it that way.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks. I love it.
All right, guys. This has been another episode of Almost Agreeable.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. Thank you for listening to another episode of Almost Agreeable. You can catch all new episodes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like, rate, and subscribe. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Almost Agreeable.